Okay, good morning, Lawrence.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us for the first Let's Talk Tri. We wanted to kind of kick this off on Tuesdays at 11 to kind of see what the interest is. I'm so happy that Lawrence is joining us today. We will have this recorded every week so that I can share later with those of you who could not join. If this time and day do not work for a lot of people, I'm happy to try another time, maybe an early evening, late afternoon type of time slot would be better. With that, let's get started. This first one, I wanted to talk about triathlon troubleshooting. And Lawrence, feel free to chime in with any questions at any point, and I'll leave time at the end also that for Q&A for you and anyone else that joins us.
Thank you.
So as far as the experience that you gain, and Lawrence happens to be new in the sport, and every race I like to look at as an experience, a learning experience, and it can be a valuable tool. All of the learning that you take from each race will be a valuable tool in helping you become a better and stronger and faster and more experienced athlete. So with that, let's talk about different specifics as far as troubleshooting. So prevention in the beginning, I would say preventing issues from happening. Number one would be to train properly, right? So whatever race that you have planned in your season, let's go back. Number one would be planning your season appropriately. Hi, Lisa. Number one would be planning your season appropriately. So that being races that are appropriate for your experience, or if you're brand new to it, then sticking to super sprints or sprints, and then arranging your calendar so that you have plenty of rest in between races, categorizing your races as A, B, and C. So A races being the most important, those are the ones you're going to taper for. Taper meaning rest, cut down your workouts and your workout durations to rest your body, to rebuild and be ready for race day. That's tapering. And you'll also plan on recovering from that race. So it will be a strong effort. You will race that race. That would be an A race. B race would be, it's still important. We want to see how you can do, but we are going to try to incorporate it a little bit more into your training. And a C race is just another workout. So it's really hard for a triathlete. A lot of us are similar in that once we get out there and we have people around us and people trying to pass us, we don't want to be passed. So it's really hard to actually use a triathlon as a workout. So we like to do that more in running races, in organized bike rides and things like that. We can call that a C race. But if you truly can keep yourself in check and use a race as a workout and just experience transitioning from the swim to the bike and the bike to the run and all of those great things in between, experiencing the open water, then that's a fantastic and valuable workout. So number one, planning a race calendar. Number two, training appropriately for those races, tapering appropriately for those races, and resting in this sport, in all endurance sports, the rest is just as important as the workouts. So all of this work that you put in, you want to reap the benefits, and the best way to do that is to rest and recover and let your body rebuild from the workouts. So even if you have a coach and you have scheduled workouts, if your body's telling you rest, sleep, if you're crabby, if you're feeling, kind of down about it and not excited about your workouts, it's probably time to listen to your body and take some rest. Hi, everyone. Everyone who's joining, feel free to chime in. We're just talking about kind of the basics. And if you're muting your phone, muting if you're not.
Do you order meals with Watchers?
No, this is
hold on, I think we have some. Let me just try to get this here. Okay. So then also in training, learning these different aspects. So I would say probably the biggest places, the biggest places where I've seen athletes fail is on race day, improper pacing, improper nutrition, or not following a fueling plan, or not having a fueling plan, can absolutely make or break your race. So number one, of course, being prepared, like we talked about, training is important, but also you'll learn in your training what products do you like for fueling. And this is more for a little bit longer race, a super sprint or a sprint race. Just eating a good breakfast early might be enough, and sipping on an electrolyte drink. But as you get into the longer distances, then you want to practice a little bit more fueling in your training so that you're good and ready for race day, and you know what you're going to use, you know how many calories you need for pre-race, for the bike and for the run, if necessary, and then also fluids, so how much you need to drink for all of those. And then also practicing mental strategies. So there's the training, there's the fueling, there's the pacing, and then there's also mental strategies, because having mental toughness on race day and even on hard training days is really, really helpful in pushing through. So this isn't easy. If this was easy, everybody would do it, right? It's not easy. Triathlon is difficult and a challenge. So having those mental tools in your toolbox, and I'll talk more about that as we go through, and that's also another topic that I would like to do one of these sessions on, is mental toughness training, mental strategies, meditation, all of these things. I'm a big proponent of, and I'm practicing more and more meditation, and it really is helpful in daily life, but also in training and race day, calming your nerves and things like that. So also back to the troubleshooting. So we talked about training, fueling, pacing. Another piece is pinpointing your limiters. So if an athlete has an unstructured workout schedule, let's just say, you kind of get up and do what you feel like doing in your training, usually we gravitate towards what feels good. We gravitate towards what we're good at and what feels good. In training though, obviously, that's probably not the best thing to do. You really want to focus on, in this sport, there are so many components to it. Focusing on your limiters is a great idea to fill in those weaker pieces. So if I'm really afraid of the swim, or I'm not so fast at the swim, or I'm not efficient at the swim, and I'm a little worried about open water, that is an area that I really, really want to focus on. It's always a good idea to focus on efficiency in the swim. Even if you're not super fast in the water, you have lots of time to make it up on the bike. But being efficient and coming out of the water with some energy for the rest of the race is key. So if your season might be over or just about over, and if you found that you struggled with that you, after your swim workouts, you were exhausted, and sometimes that's okay depending on the nature of the workout, but after you get out of the water on race day and go to get on your bike, you're exhausted, that's not good. We like the swim piece to be the warm-up. So if that's the case, then maybe you take the off season, the few months in between your races, to really say, I'm going to really focus on my swim, get some swim lessons. You can go to swim theory, you can come to the Westminster swims, and I can look at your stroke. There are a lot of different things that you can do. There are a lot of different options around town to help you improve your swim. And then once you get the efficiency down, then working on speed and endurance will be helpful. But nail that swim, nail it, make it as easy as you can for yourself, right? And then as the season approaches, getting as much open water practice in as you can will be also extremely helpful. And I like to say, get experience in as many different bodies of water as you can, if you can do it safely. Like if you're going to Lake of the Ozarks for the weekend, Lake of the Ozarks is choppy. And even if you're in a cove, you can have a lot of chop at Lake of the Ozarks, but make sure you have a friend that has a kayak and you have a swim buoy to practice with. So safety first, but any open water practices that you can find, awesome. Do the open water practices as much as you can. And that's where you're going to learn, okay, this is a limiter of mine. Or if you tend to panic in open water, pulling out that mental toolbox and using some mental strategies. And we can definitely talk more about that when I do a talk on that. And different ideas for you that have worked for me in the past. I used to panic in the swim, and it can be very, very scary. So being as prepared as possible is the smartest thing. So other possible limiters. And if anybody has any questions, just do the little raise of the hand thing. So you can raise your hand if at the bottom of the screen you see the reactions. You can raise your hand on there. And then I'll stop and answer your question. But like I said, I'm going to try to leave some Q&A at the end here too. So on the bike, what might be a limiter on the bike would be, let's see, number one, and I won't even number these, but one big limiter is not knowing how to fix flat, I'll just say, or not knowing how to fix minor mechanical issues on your bike. But fixing a flat is number one in your training and your racing. It's just a safety thing. It's smart. You're self-sufficient. You can help other people if they need help. Learning to fix a flat is key. And I'll actually have a couple of the bike shops do fix the flat clinics in the off season. So if you don't have that experience, and it's really quite easy, but you really want to go through it once on your tire when you're not in a dangerous situation, or you're not out on your bike by yourself. You really want to do it in the safety foot bike shop with someone who knows what they're doing to kind of lead you through it. And then also making sure you have your fix a flat supplies with you just in case you get a flat. I like to carry 2 tubes on a training ride just in case. If I use one, usually if you change it once, you're going to get another flat. Sometimes you can't find that little piece of glass or whatever it is that's giving you the flat. So it's a good idea to carry an extra tube for you. Or if your buddy doesn't have any tubes or accidentally forgot to restock their fix a flat bag, then you have an extra one for them. So knowing that. Also, maybe your bike is a limiter. If you got into the sport early in the season and you're using the mountain bike that was hanging in your garage, and that can really affect your race. So you're going to be going a lot less, you're going to be working a lot harder than the other athletes with the skinny tires and things like that. So if you find that you know you're going to stay in the sport, then it might be time to upgrade your bike, upgrade your equipment. You'll have a better experience. You'll be more efficient. So, and number one, even before that, is bike fit, making sure that your bike fits you properly. Swim Bike Run does a great professional bike fit, and they'll make you super comfy on your bike so that when you do bump up your distances to longer races. We have Shashi on here. I know Shashi's doing Memphis coming up here, the half. So he's got some long stuff. But making sure that you're super comfortable on your bike will make you more efficient and comfortable for the longer races and training days. So those are those are a couple of issues that limiters, I'll say, on the bike. Training, of course, as I said, lack of training, it can be a big limiter. And I'll tell you, put my race director hat on for a second. I can't count on both hands the number of athletes when we get close to race day that send me an email saying, hey, can I switch from Olympic distance to sprint distance? Or can I switch from sprint distance to super sprint distance? What's the problem there? You know, and I understand life happens and we have to figure out the balance somehow, but sometimes it's just lack of training, or it's lack of, and it's usually not a discipline thing with triathletes. It's truly like we're trying to juggle so many different things that our training has to slag. So smart of these athletes to say, hey, you know what, I'm not prepared. I don't care what it is. If they're not prepared for the swim and they're not comfortable with that distance, they don't have the endurance for the bike, or they're not sure, so they don't want to suffer and struggle on the run because they're not in shape for that, or maybe they're a little injured from running or something. So great for them to make that adjustment and stay safe. I think bottom line, the whole theme of all of these talks are safety and success for you all. So A few ideas on the run. So possible run limiters, again, training. So in triathlon training, running off the bike is extremely valuable. It's not always fun. You're exhausted when you get off your bike. All you want to do is go get something to eat. But bring your running shoes, put them on, you'll always feel better. It's kind of like the cherry on top. I've always learned to enjoy that run off the bike. It kind of loosens you up and kind of makes you feel complete after your workout. And then, you know what? It sure pays off on race day. And as you, and I'll back up a little bit and say, so running is also a place where athletes can get hurt. And the last thing in the world we want is for you to have to put your season on hold because you're hurt from a running injury. So being careful with your running when you're training for multi-sport and keeping the running as the conservative piece of your training, you can still get in a wide variety of running workouts. And what I've done, because of time and also in an effort to reduce injuries, is doing shorter runs more frequently. So instead of doing 3 runs a week of 6 miles each, doing a 3-mile run 5 days a week and then 1 long run has been very helpful for me in A, fitting it into my day. It might be a 2 or 3 mile run, but A, fitting into my day, and then B, gaining that endurance. The back-to-back runs truly will help you build endurance for a longer run. So just little tidbits that have worked for me, but I love that. And then running off the bike, always, as you get into race season, off season, you really don't have to run off the bike. You just want to kind of avoid burnout by giving yourself a break in the off season and not running off the bike. Unless you have an early spring race, that's possible that you might be doing that. But running off the bike as your races start approaching, maybe a couple months out from your race, anytime you ride your bike during the week, hop off and run a mile and a half. Really no longer than that on your shorter workouts. And then on the weekends is where you'll bump it up. And some of those brick workouts will have a shorter bike and a longer run off the bike, or before your long run. And I'm saying long, it's all relative to the race that you're training for. Okay. So you're also having a good quality shorter bike and a little bit longer run, so you can experience the fatigue that will be on your legs as you're running longer off the bike, to also know, okay, I need to take in some calories. My legs were pooped. Like, you shouldn't have to slow down at a pace that you're normally used to running, depending on what you did on the bike. There's a lot of factors that could play into that, but you shouldn't have to slow down. Sometimes it's a factor of electrolytes, hydration, calories. So if you weren't able to eat breakfast that morning, then yeah, you're going to be bonking. So you want to take in some calories on your run. Does anybody have any questions at this point? I'm rambling, but I'm having fun rambling. So stop me and raise your hand if you have any questions at all. So those are a little bit about limiters. Also transition. So transition, I like to say, is free time or lost time. So the transition between your swim and your bike and your run are all part of your total race time. Some people starting out in triathlon don't even know that. So it's important to know you need to hustle a little bit, right? You need to plan, you need to practice those transitions. As you're getting into, I'll refer to Shashi again, who's doing a half Ironman. Practicing transition isn't really that big of a deal for a half Ironman. That's like a break that you need in between. That's my dog snoring, by the way, if you're wondering what that snorting noise is behind me. So that time is as efficient as possible in the longer races, but at the same time, it's not like super speedy. Everything has to be perfect and as fast as possible, depending on your goals. I'll put it that way. But generally speaking, the shorter distances, the super sprints and the sprints, you should be as fast as possible on those. And that's just setting up your gear in the order that you're going to use it and rehearsing it. Maybe when you're already dressed and you just finished your bike ride or something, when you have all your gear out, is a good time to practice that. You can look at images online. You could look at just Google triathlon transition setups, and you can see the different ways that people set things up. But generally, it's always going to be in the order that you're going to use it, and have everything that you might need there in your transition area. Keep it tight, but have everything organized and in the order that you will use it. And then, excuse me. So yeah, transition, free time or lost time, that is really important to know. Okay, let's talk about, if nobody has any questions, I don't see any hands up, what can go wrong. So this is about troubleshooting. So let's talk about some scenarios of what can go wrong. And in the end, you all might have something to add to this of like, well, this went wrong with me. You all should know, I'm gonna throw this tidbit out for you. So different things that I have seen go wrong, I think I said that right, go wrong, is in the swim, and there are triathlons with pool swims, and that's fantastic. And I'll talk about that for a second. Pool swims usually have a serpentine option, and I'll talk about one of my favorite pool swim races is the Recplex Rookies and Rock Stars in the spring. That was Lawrence's first. And that one, what can happen there is either A, the athlete gets into it and they've never swum that distance before, and they think that they're going to be able to swim that on race day. Well, the beauty of it is it's in a pool, so you have the ends, you can always hold on, you can rest as much as you need to. But in the serpentine swims, just knowing the strategy, knowing how you're supposed to swim it, they usually have a map up that shows you how you're supposed to swim it. Sometimes people don't look at those maps. Sometimes people get confused in the swim and then they have head-on collisions, or people will swim breaststroke and backstroke because they're not prepared for that distance in freestyle, which is dangerous. You can get in the way of people, you can hit people or kick people swimming those other strokes. So that one is just really being prepared for the distance. But again, a great safe place to try it out. Even if you're not totally prepared for that distance, you can rest, no big deal at all. I have to tell you that I walked my first triathlon swim. It was Wood River, Illinois. The whole pool was shallow enough that you could walk. And I walked, I'll say probably 65-70% of the swim, because I was not prepared at all. I thought magically I would be able to swim it that day. But I was hooked after that. So I knew what I had to work on, though, I tell you what. But you don't plan on that. Like the Recplex pool is deep, so you don't want to plan on walking in that one. And then we'll talk a little bit about open water swims. What can happen there? Troubleshooting. So open water, you all know, a lot of you have been in open water already, that people that I see here on the screen. So you panic. So panicking is very, very common in open water swimming, even with very experienced athletes. I've been doing this for years and years and years, and I still will have an occasional panic, but I know how to deal with it. I've learned what I need to do to deal with it, self-talk. But again, with that, what has brought me more and more success in my open water swims is getting in as many open water swims as I possibly can. And if at your race they let you get in the open water, that's a great idea as well. So doing the practice swims, even if you don't feel like it, you don't want to get your wetsuit wet if it's a wetsuit swim, it's still so valuable. So getting out there and getting in that water, and then planning on panicking if you're a panicker like me, planning on it and saying, it's probably going to happen. This is what I will do if it happens. And then, you know what? Sometimes it doesn't even happen because I'm so calm. I already have a plan. I know what I'll do. Knowing that you can hold on to the boats, knowing that you can hold on to the swim buoys, and not that you will, but sometimes just knowing that and just, all right, just checking off the buoy, just one buoy at a time, one boat at a time, just going right by them. You know, they're there if you need them, but you probably don't. And then other strategies for more experienced athletes are using the buoys as kind of an interval type of pattern, I'll say. So what I've done for that is I'll do like an easy buoy to buoy, which sometimes they're like 100 yards apart. I'll do an easy buoy to buoy, and then I'll do a faster buoy to buoy, and then I do an easy buoy to buoy, and then a faster, depending on the distance of the race. If it's an Ironman, then I'm then I'm nice and slow and steady. Excuse me, guys. I'm getting over COVID actually, so this is a little remnants of COVID. Disgusting, but luckily I had a mild case. So yeah, open water swimming, getting help with your stroke. Again, if your stroke is the problem with your open water and it's causing you to breathe harder and work harder than you have to, then take care of that and do pool work over the winter. There are a lot of different places you can go to swim, YMCA's, the Westminster swims that we do, lots of different options. Lifetime Fitness, we have a few people that belong to that. But take care of it and really work on that. So then, and learning your mental skills for that too. On the bike, and I briefly mentioned this in the very beginning, and you may not have all been on, the biggest issues that I see on the bike that can come up on race day are lack of fueling, meaning hydrating and taking in calories. And what that will do is just cause you to slow down, possibly throughout the bike, maybe not even on the bike, but then once you hit the run, you're depleted of calories or dehydrated or both, and you can't possibly run the pace that you're normally capable of running. So having that plan, following that plan, and making sure that you know in your train, or you learn in your training what you really need. Now, you won't necessarily take in the same amount of calories in your training as you will on race day. You might gain weight by doing that. So, but learning the products that you like to use, and then talking to me or a coach or looking at your data to figure out how many calories you need per hour, depending on the distance of the race, what you had for breakfast, all of those great things. But still, number one is fueling and hydrating. We talked about the mechanical stuff and knowing how to fix flat. So there's that. And then the run, same idea, pacing, fueling. I just had a handful of athletes do the half Ironman, and a couple did the Ironman in Madison. And in reviewing their data, I was pretty much able to see those that followed the pacing and fueling plan and those that did not. So if their speed or power drops off on the bike, there's something going on. Either they started out too fast, there could be the weather, but I usually check on that. It could be a number of things, but then in talking to the athlete, I can usually figure out what went wrong and why their pace went down. Usually I can tell by, okay, they went out way too fast in the first 10 miles. So there's no way they can maintain that, and they burn some matches. So I like to look at, and every race you have a match book, and you don't want to use up all your matches, right? You want to space them out. So climbing a hill, that could be one match. Going a little too fast at the start of the race, that could be another match. Open water swim is really choppy. That could be a couple matches. So you're gonna have to make up for those. So keeping that in the back of your mind, like you only have this match book, don't use them all up too early. And ideally don't use them all. So that means that you did something right? So then also the other big overarching thing is in all of this is training properly, number one, and training and getting in the endurance. And depending on the race and your goals, you can do muscular endurance work in your intervals. Hill climbing is great muscular endurance work. That's great for form on the bike and the run as well. And speed work. So we do a track workout every Wednesday morning. It's free, it's fun, everyone's invited. That's at 5:15 a.m. on Wednesdays at Westminster. Track is just a great time to work on form and speed and really push yourself, find your limits. And it's a nice soft surface, so it's great for injury prevention. But there's a group of people out there, all different levels. I usually run by myself, but there are people around me, so it's really nice. But incorporating speed work is also important, but making sure absolutely positively, no matter what distance race you're looking at or you're training for, is to do a lot of aerobic base work, which is zone 2. You all have heard of it, of zone 2, right? Aerobic base work. So that's extremely important. There's some coaching philosophies that say 80% of your training, bike and the run and the swim, should be in this zone 2. That's quite a bit, right? That's quite a bit. I have to put my readers on here. Oh, okay, yeah. The matchstick analogy. Thanks, Sandy. Yeah, I love the matchsticks, and it does help to know that. And because it's true too, I'm looking at Sandy's comment, but as I looked at these athletes' data from Madison, like once you burn, and you could even say, I have a book of matches for the swim, I have a book of matches for the bike, and I have a book of matches for the run. Because when I look at their bike and I see, oh boy, they blew their wad in the first 10 miles, then they had no chance to really get back to their optimal pace or their goal pace because they blew it in the beginning. And then their body's demanding more calories, so their nutrition plan is off and their legs are tired. So it's really hard then to get back to that goal pace. Whereas if they would have started either at their goal pace, the pace that we figure out or you figure out, or starting a little bit easier and doing a negative split strategy, which is normally is successful if you can do it. It's really tough on race day. Again, that same thing, holding back when people are going faster and passing you in the beginning is huge. But yeah, when I see that on the bike and then so they slow down at the end of the bike, then they get off for the run, same thing, out of the chute, fast, like heart rate's way high. They're going faster than they've ever run a half marathon in the first couple miles, and then it goes downhill from there. So what would their overall race look like if they would have controlled that a little bit in the beginning? That's what I like to look at and show them, like, here's your data. If you would have stayed in this range, and you can use perceived exertion, you can use heart rate, you can use power, you can use speed, run or bike speed pace, but figuring out what that spot is, that speed for the distance of race that you're doing, and either hang on to that using your data, or if it's perceived exertion, hang on to it. I've used perceived exertion in many races myself using data and training, and then perceived exertion race day works well for me and some clients. Other people are driven by the numbers. And so whatever works for you though, it's something to practice. Like I said, every race is an experiment. So practicing that and using some of those B races to work with different training zones or what should I say, racing strategies, figuring out what pushes you and what also keeps you in check is important. So yeah, that also, just the overall plan of your pacing for the race is a great idea. And I like to have a plan, a B plan, and even a C plan. So A is the stars are aligned. Everything's going to go your way. You visualized the perfect race. That's how it's going to go. The weather's great. You feel good. It's cool out, whatever it may be. And you have a rock star race day. But B plan is the water was really rough and choppy. I was exhausted when I got out of the water. So I got on my bike. I was hungry. I was tired. Okay. So you have a B plan. You adjust your pacing for the bike, and then hopefully you can refuel and feel good and then stick to your plan for the run. That's just an idea, kind of a B plan idea. And C plan is, I woke up not feeling well, so I couldn't eat breakfast. My kids were a nightmare. I was exhausted by the time I got to the race. So I was just going to be happy to escape my house and enjoy the time with my friends and just have fun and take it easy. And that could be your C plan. Like, who knows what could happen? You know, your car gets stuck in the mud when you're trying to park for the race, or I've seen all kinds of crazy things happen, and you can't, I'll say you can't get stressed about it. Of course you can, but ideally you just kind of sit back and say, okay, this is for fun, right? Remind yourself this is for fun. And because it is. So, and really, I would say learning from each race, writing a race summary after each race while it's still fresh in your mind. Ideally, that next day, if possible, writing a summary. What went right? What went wrong? Have fun with it. Write the story, the story of your race day, and have fun with it. Let other people read it. And then also have valuable tidbits in there that will help you for your other races, for your next race. What worked? That's the important one. What worked and what not to do. Right. So with that, I'm going to wrap up my piece and I'll open it up for questions. You can feel free to write the questions in the comment section if you want to, or just chime in and turn on your microphone. I'm happy to do either. And then also I want to know if this time works well for this group. I'm so happy that you all joined. If this time works well, we're going to keep doing this the next 2 Tuesdays at least. But I might stick to this time beyond that if we like this, or add another time. So chime in with any input that you have. I so appreciate you all. Any questions? Oh, Shashi has a question.
Great talks as usual, Sally. Thank you for arranging this. First of all, I always try to see if I could manage myself squeezing out some time to listen to you. It's always valuable. It's not a question, but a comment on what could go wrong in water. Per my experience, I had a couple of times where my goggles were leaky. And then I had to, first of all, as soon as I went into the water, I realized that, oh, no, it's getting in. And then the first thing I did was to reach out to the kayak and then adjusted those goggles. So I would suggest the lessons that I learned is if I get an opportunity to get into water before the actual race starts, I take that and check these things up if, how my goggle is behaving or not. And what the water temperature and everything is definitely works out. But yeah, the goggles are definitely helpful because otherwise it gets into the panic mode if you just keep continuing with that water inside your goggle. It's not comfortable.
Oh my gosh, thank you for that. And that is huge, Shashi. What I like to do, I'll just tell you my little tip on that is I have the same goggles I've worn for years, the Speedo Vanquisher. I just love them. I swim in the pool in them and racing, and they just have a very slight tint because I like to be able to see really well. But what I do is 2 weeks out from my race or anytime I buy a brand new pair. So I have a brand new pair for race day. I'll wear them though a couple times in the pool just to make sure that I have the straps adjusted just right. But when they're new, the anti-fog is nice and fresh, and the rubber part that sticks to around your eye on your skin is stickier. So you're definitely better off. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can see, like I've been wearing these old goggles in the pool and these feel so good. So that's just my little tip, because then I know I've tried them a couple times, so they're not leaking. And that works for me, because sometimes old goggles, I've been with an athlete who was on the beach adjusting her goggles and they snapped and broke. They were so old.
Oh
My gosh, they were so old and they broke. And so she went into a mad panic, and another athlete had a pair for her, thank goodness. But yeah, so you don't want that to happen. So another good reason to have some new ones for race day.
Yeah, thanks.
But yeah, thank you for sharing. That's a great one. Anyone else have any troubleshooting tips or things that have gone wrong and you're not quite sure how to solve or anything?
I can share one more thing.
Sure.
And it may be just me, but when I did my sprint, it's not Olympic distance St. Louis Triathlon, which we had wetsuits on. I came out of water, and the guy who was stripping the wetsuits off asked me to sit down, and I just sat down. I was tired, and I sat down, and he pulled the wetsuit out. But while getting up, I got a cramp, pretty bad cramp in my hamstring. So maybe I was wondering if I should not do this in the future. I should just leave it out and then do it on my own pace, because the moment I came out and then sat down and he pulled it out, all that action happened within few maybe 30 seconds, but it was very daunting on my legs. I felt pretty bad after that. So
oh no, I remember that. You know what, Shashi, that same day, the exact same thing happened to another athlete. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
good point. Like that quick sitting down, laying down, and then jumping up, that may not be good if you're on the verge of cramping. And that also would be a good indicator to me that that you were dehydrated. So making sure you get more electrolytes right before the swim. So either carrying around an electrolyte drink with you, and maybe you did this, but carrying around an electrolyte drink with you while you're setting up your transition, while you're waiting for the swim to start, just sipping on an electrolyte drink. Another thing I've done is, and I practiced this to make sure it worked for my stomach, but I'll carry a bottle of water and a gel with me, or electrolytes and a gel. And then maybe as I'm approaching my swim start, when I know I have just a couple minutes, I'll take my gel, sip some water, and then I have some good calories and electrolytes in my belly for the swim. And then I feel pretty good then getting on the bike. So it may have been a combination of the two things that were not good for you, but yeah, it could just be the quick movements too on your body coming out from being horizontal in the swim. And but yeah, that's a good one. Thanks for sharing. Another issue that can happen with the wetsuit strippers is they can you can lose your timing chip pretty easily when they whip that wetsuit off of your legs. So something else to watch out for. If you do
Okay.
that. Yeah, but good point. Okay, does anybody have anything else? If not, we can wrap up a little early, but I'm so happy to take any questions even after this presentation, and feel free to email me or message me on Facebook. Let me know if you have any specific topics that you'd like me to cover. I usually see from my clients in the triathlon community what the needs are and try to be timely with my topics. But I'm certainly open to, I might be missing something that you all would like to hear about. So feel free to shoot that my way. And I, again, really, really appreciate you all being here. Any last minute questions? If not, we'll shove off and continue on with our day.
Hey, I can share one more lessons
Okay,
that I learned. Sorry
good.
to take your time.
That's great.
I learned that when the last triathlon, the half distance I did for 370, I racked my bike a day before, and
Yep.
then I took the air out of my tires, and the next day I forgot about it to fill that back in. And fortunately, I had my family around me, and then I had to ask my wife to get that thing done, and otherwise it would have been a disaster. Just make sure you bring your definitely the pump, but fill the tires up before you start your swim.
Yes, and that's a good point. So we told everyone that day before, it was so hot, and this is a troubleshooting thing too. It was so hot that day, and everyone was dropping their bike, or a lot of people were dropping their bikes off. Well, if your bike's sitting in the heat and your tires are fully pumped, your tube can explode. So horrible. Then you go to your bike in the morning and you have a complete flat. But that being said, remembering to put the air back in is huge. That's huge. Like putting a note to yourself on your bike or something, like just to remember that. And Shashi and everyone too, just know that, like, reach out to us, come find me, come find one of our crew, and let us know if something like that ever happens, and we will do everything we can to help you scramble, because yeah, that's a nightmare.
No, it was, there was one more volunteer that helped my wife to get into the transition area and help that out. But I'm just saying, because this thing could happen in the moment where this is not a regular practice that you take the air out and pump it back, things of that nature. So I'm thinking, if for my Memphis, if they ask us to do the same thing, I'm not sure, but I'm going to just tie my air pump tube to the wall, so that I know the next day I have to fill this up.
Yes.
Even get started. So yeah.
Yes, good idea. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank
for
you.
your contributions, and thank you for everyone who joined us. And I will see you next week, unless I hear from you before that. Lawrence, have a great trip to Napa. Run through the vineyards for us.
Will do.
Okay, guys, thank you. And Sandy, thank you for joining.
Yeah, I'll speak up next week. I was a little distracted doing a little multitasking during this. But yeah, I'll be back next week.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good afternoon. Bye, guys.